listening to part 2 of my conversation with Dr. Jennifer Mullan of at Decolonizing Therapy. Enjoy. Have you ever had imposter syndrome?
Oh, I have it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have it all the time. Yes. And I feel as though hearing the words imposter syndrome gave me language to understand what was happening,
Yes.
and like that I believe not only some of these thoughts, but it's been ingrained in me from a system that has allowed me to feel less than what I am and given me less than what I deserve. So I do understand imposter syndrome as a form of like emotional colonization, for me. That's yeah. I did not create the term emotional colonization, and I've been trying to find out who has, but whoever you are, good looking out, because
Yeah.
that is what I strongly identify with. And I feel like that's a lot of what I do, is help myself remember that a lot of what I believe about myself, particularly when I'm stressed and tired and burned out and feeling alone or hungry, any of those things that are basic human needs, that I start believing like, this is not good enough. No one understands you. Just stop posting. You can't charge that amount of money for someone to see you. No one is going to ask to work with you. No one is this. No one is that. Like, I really, I think it's a pretty human condition, to not believe in ourselves from time to time. But I do believe it stems from internalizing messages that whiteness has sent us consciously and unconsciously.
I think it's human for sure. I also think it's feminized and racialized.
Yes.
Disproportionately. So,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk about money, because I heard you say that sometimes you feel like you shouldn't be charging X amount for a session.
Yeah.
And so often we're told that it's materialistic to desire money, to ask for money. What is your relationship with money, if I can ask?
Yeah. Me and money have broken up a few times, For me, math and money go together, and I'm almost like, leave me alone. I don't want to deal with it. I am working on my own financial trauma. Money did not, literacy around finances did not come easy in my family, and it does not come easy for me. Every few years, I get brought back to it in a person that I'm working with, meaning like they're coaching me or they're helping me with my finances. I realize just how much I have disconnected and dissociated myself from budgets, and because all of that for me feels as though I'm being restricted. It becomes a form of restriction, almost like a diet. And it feels as though someone is withholding something from me, and that makes me really angry. And then I get really sad, or I start getting irritable. And it's not like I'm going out there buying all this BS. It's more feeling that I have access to enough to help others around me and to help myself. So it's a growing process. It's a growing relationship. In my therapeutic or healing work, money frequently comes up. And when people talk about generational and intergenerational wealth, right, I honor it, I hear it, and it is something that I still am chewing on and working with. But I really think that being a person that has so many student loans and the debt that I have incurred, some part of me has to dissociate because I'm a victim of the system in that way. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm still working on it. So my goal is not to be so rich that I have all this excess money. My goal is to live comfortably and be able to help people around me and be able to donate to causes,
and support local businesses that you love.
Yeah, always. And I want to have a little beach house.
Nice.
Or a nicer, bigger one where people could live there with me. And I really love the ocean. So yeah, there's certain things that I would love. But, when I see billionaires, I mean, there's people like Jeff Bezos, and a lot of his folks don't even have health insurance. And he's a ridiculous billionaire. To me, that's disgusting.
because that's wanting wealth for the sake of wanting wealth. And there's a difference between that and wanting wealth so that you can do things with that money, so that you can have security, so that you can support people around you.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So yeah, I'm still learning about my relationship to money. And if I looked at my trauma timeline, as I would say, money has a lot to do with a lot of points of trauma in my life. I grew up like probably a little bit below the poverty line to like working class. So there's always a fear that there's not enough food, not enough money. Even if I do, the fear is very real. Yeah.
It's a big thing. I wish it was spoken about more in classrooms.
Yes. They never talked about fees and charging, and they're just like, separate yourself from it. And it's like, wait a minute. But I also have to be compensated for my emotional labor, for the education, for what I bring into the space. You know, I do believe in bartering. I do believe there's ways that we can help and support each other, you know, but
yes,
at the end of the day, I also need to make sure that I can take care of myself and people around me. Yeah.
Therapists need to eat. And I think in the past, these roles were priests and priestesses and shamans and spiritual leaders. And those people were always taken care of by the community.
Always.
So they didn't necessarily need to charge because people were taking care of them. People were gifting them, giving them gold, giving them houses, giving them whatever they needed. They had what they needed, you know, but we have it in more of a structural, capitalized way. Do you have a networking tip that you can share with listeners?
Yeah, okay, a networking tip. I think in the age of social media, some of the ways that I realized I've networked without meaning it is building a net that works, right? Not just networking, but building a net that works. And I first heard that term from the People's Institute of Survival and Beyond's Undoing Racism training. So it isn't important to just, in my humble opinion, hand out my cards and shake hands, but rather also build relationship and inter-issue solidarity, right? Like we're hella cool with waterworks folks and people doing the work to have clean water. And that has a very strong connection to the individuals trying to bring down the juvenile justice industrial complex. And that's also very connected to birth justice and Black mothers surviving childbirth and having babies. And that, you get what I'm saying? So it's like a net that works means that I'm not just focusing in on my own little area and my own little stuff, but forming relationships with people that will teach me, will help me expand past my growing edge, where I'm standing up for their causes, where they're coming and helping me out with my causes, and that eventually that I could call them up if I'm sad, or, you know, like you build a relationship. So for me, that is a networking tip, is continue to build, not just like network, but build. And does that make sense? Is that, I don't know.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I'm just jotting that down because I'm like, that's probably an Instagram post.
Yes.
And the other thing is, when I genuinely start like following somebody on Instagram and I really appreciate what they write and their content, you know, sometimes I will message them one-on-one and I'm just like, yo, thank you. That really like touched me, or I appreciate what you said, blah, 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 blah. Or I can't tell you how many friendships I have already formed that are like legit friends that have been from the online sphere.
That's so nice. Me too. Know?
Yeah.
I think Instagram's awesome.
It is. Yeah. So I think letting people know that you appreciate their unique light and shine goes a long way. There's days that I was feeling like, I'm not posting anything. I'm not in the mood, whatever. And someone sent me a message and I was just like, thank you, man. Like I really needed that. Like thank you.
So switching gears a bit, could you talk about how you identify and how your identity plays into your work?
Yeah. So my identity has continued. Fluid is one of my favorite words for life, for everything. I identify as a woman, right? I identify my sexual orientation as fluid, gender expression generally feminine, but it can be fluid depending. Um, I also identify as a Black woman. It took me years to honor that identity. And I think it's because I pass as lighter skin. I mean, I am light skinned, but I don't pass as a white person, you know?
Yeah.
So as a little kid, that's confusing, if that makes any sense, right?
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes even moving into adulthood, I don't think that we have enough patience for people that are like, wait, well, I don't look like this, because kids are very like concretized. So if our parents don't have the language or the identity, consciousness, and awareness development to say, hey, yeah, you're light skinned, but blah, 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 blah. But you don't pass as white, sweetie. Or you do pass as white, and here's the privileges, and here's when it's a danger, and here's what, like those conversations I feel like need to continue to happen. Yeah. So my dad, and I talk about this all the time, like my dad is Irish and Italian. My dad is white, straight white. Like that's it, like, you know? And my mom is Black Panamanian. So I would imagine even some of my cousins are like, wait, how do you identify as Black? Like, wouldn't you just identify as Latina? And I did for many years. Like I do honor my Latinx identity. I do speak Spanish. I don't like the term Spanish, but you get what I mean. I speak the Spanish language. But at the end of the day, my ancestors, or half of my ancestors, definitely came from Africa. I definitely walk in the world as a woman of color, as a Black woman, depending on what part of the world I'm in. And I definitely have privileges when it comes to within our Black identities. I definitely am very conscious when darker skinned Black women are being shut down, when they're not being listened to. And when I'm being listened to, I'm very conscious when people are just like, oh, well, she has pretty hair, and you're pretty, and you're blah, 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 blah. So how I get exotified, you know, I'm really conscious of that. So those are points of privilege. And I think it's really, really important for individuals to honor their points of privilege. But there's nothing about me in my futures, like, you don't see me and think, oh, she's a white woman either.
Yeah.
You know? So I honor that as well. And that is what I experience most often. Mm-hmm. You know, I also identify as, let me see, I want to make sure I hit all the identities. Yeah, and I don't have full ability. Like, you know, I am neurodivergent, like living with attention deficit, living with the struggle of focusing on one task at a time, or my mind running 18 miles ahead. And I know everybody's like, oh, I must have ADHD. It's like, no. Like, you know, at extreme levels where I can hyper focus and then I don't even get up to go to the bathroom, or I'm so unfocused for weeks at a time that I can barely like ground myself to like get a meal in, you know. So I also have a hearing impairment. You know, my hearing is pretty bad. So people don't realize that half the time I'm like reading their lips, or like really trying to pay attention to like what they're saying. I miss things a lot. Those are just identities and how I walk in the world, you know, and how this informs my work. This informs everything, right? Everything. I also identify as a person that continues to live, survive, and thrive various forms of trauma and institutional racism. And none of these things are me, right? None of these things get to define who I am, but these experiences have certainly had me to rethink my field, hence had me rethink how I do quote unquote therapy with people, how I take care of myself, who I decide to love or date or decide to be intimate with it. Like, I feel like a person needs to understand some very key fundamental issues related to race relations, poverty, transphobia, fat phobia. Like, if we can't have these conversations, you don't have to understand all the words, but if you don't have some level of consciousness, if you can't get down with me being in ceremony and burning Palo Santo and chanting and being witchy as fuck, then we can't fuck with each other. Like, it's not gonna happen, you know? So And that's where like my fluidity comes in, where I'm much more attracted to a person than I am, a gender.
The outer casing.
Yeah. It's definitely about like, how do I feel when I'm around you? Does it feel like home?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I totally hear that, not wanting to date or even be friends with someone who just has their eyes closed.
Yeah. And chooses that even when they're around you.
Yeah. It re-traumatizes to be around those people, quite frankly.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, that's real.
Yeah. So that's a huge one. Like that's a huge one.
Yeah.
Do you code switch?
Definitely. Fuck yes. All the time. I don't always realize that it's that. I think it's just like a tactic. It's just like survival, There's a thing in my job where there's a lot of students that some of my colleagues will call manipulative. And I'm like, are they manipulative or are they just hella resourceful? Like, this isn't really manipulative. Because, there's lying, certain things, things happen, right? Or they know how to move from one therapist to another. And I'm like, no, I just think that they're getting their needs met. And so the code switching for me is like, I do it less and less, but in order for me to have gotten to this point, I learned to enunciate. I learned to speak a certain way. Learning psychological jargon is a whole big bit of being a psychologist. Being a clinical psychologist means I know how to pathologize like the other side of my hand, right? Like I speak, right? I speak ICD-9. I can speak it, and I think that I do it so little now. And I pull back from that world and those kind of people so much that when I have to, I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah. It's like when you haven't spoken French in a while and you're in Paris and you're like, oh, shit.
Yep. So the code switching for me is more like, who am I around? Who needs to hear what I know or have to say? How is it going to be most heard? And is it safe for me to be myself?
Yes.
When I teach my class, I'm myself. But people have reactions to it sometimes, right? When I go and do a talk, generally I'm myself. I tone it down a few notches, but generally I'm myself because now I have the privilege and the ability. Maybe I did for a long time, but maybe I, would always be punished or consequenced for being myself growing up. So I have learned to minimize it, tone it down. So I code switch less, but sometimes it still happens. I can curse every other word if I let myself just, and I grew up in the city, in the inner city, like New York City, Jersey City. So we're very, there's a hood energy to that, and it's part of my culture. So I bring that with me. So instead of minimizing that and trying to put it away, I try to highlight that it's just as beautiful as anybody else's culture and that there's valid points to it as well. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, of course. It's just as beautiful as anyone else's expression.
Yeah.
I was growing up, I used to hear my mom on the phone with people talking in a completely different accent. And I remember as a kid thinking, what is she doing? Is she doing that on purpose? And then I just started doing it completely unconsciously when I entered, school.
Wow.
And it's only now that I'm like, oh, wait, it's first of all, it's called code switching. Second of all, it's almost automatic.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, literally, this was only last month that I was having dinner with my folks and I heard my dad talk to the waiter and I just realized, when mom orders, she code switches. When dad orders, he doesn't. My father is exactly the same person with the same voice and the same accent in every single situation he's in.
Wow.
And I haven't, and I mean, I've known him for 24 years.
Yeah.
But I just learned that about him last month, and I can't believe I didn't know that about him. And
yeah,
so cool. Amazing. I was like, oh my God.
It's real. Yeah, my dad's the same way, and my mom switches it up all the time. So some part of me wonders if that's not also part of like the male privilege, you know?
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, I haven't thought of, I didn't think about that. Yeah, it could be.
You know, being able to be like, hey, this is who I am, and I'm gonna be it. And then I don't know about you, but I know like in my mom's culture and stuff, it's like women kind of take a back seat to the men sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. You know, they might really run the household, but on the outside, I don't know.
Yes, maybe there's a little bit of the male thing where he can be himself, and it's safe for him to be himself physically. You know, he's like he's big. No one's gonna do anything to him. But at the same, but here this has me thinking, going off on a tangent here. I know men who are very conscious of the fact that people find them intimidating because they're like black, brown, racialized, and so they code switch. So it's, I don't know. So I think there's the male aspect to it where men in black and brown bodies actually need to code switch more in certain situations.
Keep it safe.
To be safe. So it's a whole thing to unpack.
Yeah.
Whole thing to unpack. Can you tell me about a time that a personal failure or a professional failure turned out to be a blessing in disguise?
Yeah, I think all of them.
It's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I don't see it that way at the time, but yeah. Which one do I want to focus on? There's so many. Well, I would take a really personal recent one, to be honest, that I don't talk about a whole lot. So I was told that, you know, I did my APA internship. I got a job at a university a lot of people wanted a job in, and I do a lot there, blah, 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 blah. And so my boss, who is like a mentor, she's known me for many years, even when I was younger in that program, was like, okay, well, now you got to get licensed. And immediately, my body had a reaction to it. Immediately. And it's for a few reasons. Number one, I do not do well on standardized testing, and I never have, ever. I think part of that has to do with the way that I learn and the ADHD, you know, that I need to be stimulated. I need to get up. I need to walk around. Even though I was a straight A student, horrible in the GREs and the SATs. And it's also very racialized, right? And hella racist, and it doesn't tell anything other than I know how to take an exam or not, right?
Yeah.
But at the time, you know, so I didn't want to do it, but there was another reason there. It wasn't just because I wasn't good at tests and testing. Something in me was just like, yo, do I really want to be licensed? Like, I am like raging against this fucking system. Right. This is before decolonizing therapy was even. And I'm like, do I really want this? I work at a university and I can do therapy at a university without being licensed. Okay. So, but if I were to go out and do quote unquote private practice or what have you, I would have to be licensed or under somebody else's license. So I forced myself to take the exam. I studied for like 6-7 months. Thousands of dollars spent on the exam materials, the graduate, you know, the EPPP is like the bar exam. It's really, 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 really hard, like ridiculous. Like, so I'm not just learning clinical psychology, but I have to take like the whole exam has industrial organizational psych, developmental psych, neuropsych, research methods, statistics, psychodynamic. It's everything you ever learned psychologically in your whole life, plus classes you never took.
Okay. Wow.
So it's exhausting even talking about it. Right?
Yeah.
And I had already started unboxing myself and like unpacking and deconstructing whiteness in my life. So I would study and I'd be like, this is bullshit. You know, this is fucking bullshit. Like I'm not, and I'm like, nope, be positive, Jen, be positive. Love the test. It's going to give you freedom. I'm like, and then I'll be like, is it going to give me freedom? Or is it going to give me another way to be part of this fucking system? So I took the exam. I failed it. And I said to myself, I'm going to take it once. And if I fail it, spirit, you're telling me not to fucking take it again. So my mentors and even other spiritual people were like, no, you got to take it. You got to take it. And it's still a point of contention. Like mentors are pissed at me, like don't want to talk to me. Like dead up, like I'm losing relationships because I think I'm at a place where I'm realizing, like, fuck it. I don't want to be licensed. And I think I have the privilege because of my following on Instagram and coaching and other ways of healing and knowing, and I can be therapeutic without having to do therapy. And if I was licensed, I would not be able to do any kind of like Zoom calls or cyber work with people from other countries. I have clients from Canada. I have clients from other states. That would not be allowed. That would not be allowed to do. I wouldn't be able to do that. And I think that therapy or therapeutic techniques are some of my tools, but they're not all of what I do. So it's a recent decision, choosing not to be further, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want the licensing board to hover over me and my practice and my life and tell me what I can do, what I can't, how much to charge, but yet not taking insurance, I know doesn't allow certain people to work with me. So I don't know if that makes sense.
That does. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. But thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What do you do outside of work for fun?
I do so much and not enough at the same time. I'm a reader of like sci-fi novels and dystopian youth novels, from like, you know, Dresden Files to Court of Thorn and Roses and Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. And like, I think it just brings me someplace else and it helps me. I love dancing, and haven't gone dancing in a while, but I do Zumba like every other day. I lift a bit. It helps me to ground and it helps with my trauma. Anything artistic and creative, collages. Sometimes I give collages to my friends and friends. I love like going to various like cultural places and museums, whether it's to critique it or to enjoy it or to, you know, and I go into the New York City a lot and listen to live music, concerts, whatever, Groupons, like, like, I don't know, like they had this thing where cooking classes, I love doing that. But there was this thing where you can like kind of like beer flight hop and then like go down this like snow slope on a garbage can lid, and it was like $25 and we did that. It was like the best thing ever. We were like drunk and like on snow and garbage can lids down this hill. Like,
oh my God. Like, so like garbage can lid tobogganing.
Yes.
With beer.
Yes.
Okay. As a Canadian, I can fuck with that. Yeah. We've got the snow to do that. Somebody in Toronto needs to organize that.
Yeah. And you know, and we have game nights with my friends too. We have game nights. I think game nights are really important to like connect, laugh, whatever. But yeah, sometimes I just need to like turn up and turn down the noise, and remember that we have collective. Yeah.
What are your favorite games?
Okay. Cards Against Humanity.
Okay, I like that one. It's so it's like my problematic fave.
I know. You know. Another of my favorite game. Oh my gosh, my friend is gonna beat me. What is the name of the game? It's basically like a spy game, and it's very much like two or three of you are like the spies, and you have to like try to infiltrate whatever the mission is, but only the spies know who the spies are, so they're helping each other out. And I can't remember the name of it, but that's a favorite game. And I love like Pictionary, stuff like that. Yeah.
Have you played What Do You Meme? Meme as in M-E-M-E?
No, never have.
So imagine Cards Against Humanity, but with pictures of memes. Yeah.
Sounds amazing and bad at the same time.
It's pretty, like it's horrible and funny and and you talked about your self-care a little bit, that you're a very spiritual person. Is there anything non-spiritual or any other self-care practices that you do?
It's funny because I think that like my spirituality just feels like the biggest part of me.
Yeah.
I think it's what helps me. Like, I don't know if I could separate myself anymore from it. It's just like what I do all the time, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. So there's nothing non-spiritual. It's like embedded.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like everything kind of has spirit or my ancestors involved in it. But it took many years, I think, to get to that place.
What is your favorite and then your least favorite piece of common career advice?
Favorite and then non-favorite common career advice for therapists or in general?
Well, however you want to interpret it. Just the advice you hear floating around that you're like, yeah, that's right, and like, no, that's wrong.
Go to school and get an education. I feel that could work for some people, and that may be the route. But from and working at a university, I could tell you firsthand, the higher education institution is a business, and not everybody benefits from being in it, and not everybody feels good while they're in it. And a lot of students are spending a lot of money thinking that the degree is going to like give them some kind of financial security and some kind of like, well, have a degree. And that may or may not be true, but in my humble experience as a professional and as a person, people can also be very successful, and that doesn't have to be tied to the educational industrial complex. So cosmetology, I see a lot of students come in that are amazing. I'm like, what do you want to do? One of my favorite clients, she's just like, as soon as she met me, she's like, what's your sign? What's your astrological sign? Because I don't get along with blah, 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 blah. And so I told her, which would some people would say would be poor boundaries. I don't think it's poor boundaries. I think it's like it's important to her. Yeah. Able to unpack it. And so we're at a place where I'm helping her create like a YouTube channel where she does makeup because she's great at makeup and she makes money that way. And she talks about astrology.
That is so cool.
And because as we realize, like she's doing business, but she's like, she's a C student because she doesn't care. She doesn't really care. But she's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not into this. Like, I don't, she's Sagittarius. And she's just like, I'm not feeling it. So we started, I said, would you like me to talk to you about some stuff for online? Are you interested in increasing your online presence? She's like, oh my gosh, I would love that. And I realized like that's therapy too. I have not something that could potentially really help her. Yeah. And I think that she would make so much more money doing what she loves as a, makeup artist / astrologer. And who does that? And this generation really loves astrology and loves makeup. So yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. And thank you for saying that. I think a lot of people who hear that are going to feel as though their feelings are validated. Because the educational system can be so psychologically violent.
Yeah, it can.
It really can be. And what is your favorite piece of common career advice?
Favorite piece of common career advice? Do what you love, man. I know that there's a lot of privilege to that as well. But I do feel if a chunk of your day is dedicated to doing what lights you up in some way, shape, or form, we are going to be that much more happy. We're going to be that much more grounded. We will be that much more less stressed. Yeah. And so not all of us can do what we love, and not all of us are privileged enough to get paid for doing what we love. And that's real. And so like the people hustling, working 3 jobs and kids at home and a sick wife or husband or partner, maybe they don't have the ability to do what they love. Maybe they don't know how to draw. They can't draw right now, but we could be on the bus or the light rail or whatever, and you could be drawing, So I do feel like I love people. I'm a people person, and I love connecting with people, and being able to do that helps me a lot.
Do you consider yourself an extrovert?
People would assume that I am. My personality tests, I come out as an E, as an extrovert.
Yeah.
However, over the years, I'm more of an ambivert. Over the years, I'm more of an ambivert. Whereas when I talk and engage, if I'm on and I'm like feeling good, I'm very extroverted. But I get my energy both from people, if it's the right people, and from being alone. I could be alone much better, but I think that also comes with working on myself in age and having been divorced. And I was very codependent, and then I think it took time and energy and the pain of a divorce to be able to honor that being by myself feels really sweet as well, that I don't need to be out every Saturday night. I don't need to be at a restaurant or partying. Actually dressing down is my favorite way to dress now. So I think I'm an ambivert. I don't think I'm just an extrovert. And sometimes people see me and just like they'll get a Virgo energy. Like they won't feel this because I don't care. I'm at work and lately I'm just like, I think that it can come across very intimidating, but that's one of the ways I learned how to survive and code switch as well, which is not letting people feel uncomfortable.
Having to take care of other people's emotions about you.
I grew up like that. That's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That's real. Yeah. And there's something there about growing up. Like one of my spiritual teachers is like, I want there to be a place where Jenny doesn't have to be the therapist in the room. I want you to have one place in your life.
Yeah.
You're not energetically or emotionally taking care of people in the room. And I was like, I sat there like a baby crying for like 15 minutes. Because I'm like, and it's not on purpose. Like people are not purposely.
Of course not. Yeah.
Even, like if anything, I have friends that pull back because they don't want me to take care of them.
Yeah.
But I was raised that it's safe for me to let people be comfortable around me. Yeah.
Are you the eldest daughter?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So am I.
Tell me about that.
I heard what you said, and speaks volumes. Yeah. Eldest daughter in an immigrant household, because immigrant mothers. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You got to be the support.
Yeah. And if not, yeah. I mean,
that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, but I frequently feel like the mother in most spaces I'm in.
Yeah.
And as a therapist once said to me, like, that's not a sexy feeling. And I don't mean sexy like gender expression sexy, but like, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't always feel good to just feel like I'm the one taking care of everybody.
There's no vitality in that feeling.
Yeah. And spontaneity and adventure.
I hear that. What would your advice be to students who may not have a passion or may not know what their passion is?
Yeah. Number one, if you have the ability to, I would say do something outside of your comfort zone that allows you to go to somewhere new, For some students, as you mentioned students, it could be study abroad. For some students, it's just a school trip for a week. For some students, it is staying with an aunt or uncle in another country or another state or U.S. states, sorry. Y'all don't.
I mean, I would hope my listeners can put themselves outside their own country for a bit and listen to someone else talk.
That's real. So there's something about being really uncomfortable, but in a very okay, I'm going over here and I know I'm not going to be comfortable because I don't speak this language, or I'm going to have to live in circumstances that are not comfortable for me, as safe as you possibly can. But I think going outside of our comfort zone, there is such a huge growth to that. So when I moved across the country to California, even though I was 27 years old, I was terrified. Even though I didn't care so much about various traditions and holidays, every holiday I was a sobbing mess. I had to learn how to be with myself, not just be by myself, but be with myself. Go to stores, shop, have lunch by myself, go to the movies by myself. And I think that's one of the best things I could say is like, yeah, I wouldn't just always stay where you have grown up. There is a beauty and a mystery to moving outside to our growth edge, I'd like to call it.
I think so too. And if you're going to another country, to please be respectful and not a voyeur.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And most of the people here listening, I would say 95% have bicultural, multicultural awareness. So they don't need to hear that, but I'm saying it for anyone who does need to hear that.
That's right.
Yeah. So when it comes to psychology, was it something you sort of stumbled across where you were like, oh, this is so neat? Or is it something you sought out?
Psychology?
Yeah.
Let me see. No, I didn't seek it out. It was through me going to the Peers Educating Peers program. Okay. And I really loved the work that my mentor was doing. Yeah. So I took some psychology classes. And then I was like, hey, I think I would like this. And then I switched from English to psychology.
Cool. Very cool. I think there's a lot of psychology in English. In fiction writing so much.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
What is your advice to recent graduates?
Let me sit with that. My advice to recent graduates is to connect more with like the collective healing. I think there's a lot of focus on like personal healing and self-care. Mm-hmm. And I would say that we will always get burned out if we only focus on self-care. Yes. When we also rely on and support others, a community or a collective, when we're able to get called out or called in, when we're able to listen to hard feedback, when we're able to ask for $15 to take the bus and the train and get some lunch and have a little less shame than we normally would, there's something beautiful and magical that happens. And I think we're preparing for the new world. And the new world, if we're lucky enough to have her still in the next few years, would be one where bartering is more common, where collective help is common, where shared resources and everybody pulling their money together is way more common. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And my last question, what are the next steps at Decolonizing Therapy? Or where do you see your career going?
Yeah. Well, we are working on something.
And if you don't want to share, you don't have to. But
yeah. I will share generally.
Yes.
It's not just going to be Dr. Jennifer Mullan being part of Decolonizing Therapy. I love your face right now. Yeah. We're working hard on creating a whole fucking, I don't even know what to call it, paradigm shift. It's not a system. I don't know what it is yet. And words are so hard, but I get a lot of emails. How do I become a more conscious therapist? Or how do I this? Or I could be in HR. And how do I take these trainings? Or how do I learn when you learn? Or, how do I get this work? How do I do this healing? And right now I'm running around like a little chicken without a head doing individual, and it can kind of burn me out, you know? I am bringing on 4 to 5 people that have been learning with me and are my backbones. 1 or 2 are therapists, 1 is a social worker, 1 is a queer creative spiritual healer, 1 is a body worker, 1 is a white woman that is an amazing organizer and anti-racist. Because
we need those people in the space too.
Yes, we do. And she can take it when I call her out. And
love that.
I can take it when she's like, you're too much in your, the stars. And I'm like, that's your whiteness, boo. Like, so, another friend, if she says yes, is a hardcore grassroots organizer, and will be able to talk to people about her own migration trauma and do peer support around migrant trauma and leaving families or homelands behind. And these are like my my other person, my other people's family member. We're going to talk about this. We used to be my client many, many, many years ago. And then she became a group member in the PEP program. And then she became a friend. And then now she's like family. She's like like my sister or something. So I think it's important to highlight how that can happen in a boundary-filled way.
I agree.
So we would like to highlight our relationship in that way. And she also grew up in the deep, deep inner city in a very intense, what we will call around here gang country, where it's like very unsafe for a lot of kids because they get picked up and into the life so that they could survive. And she's going to work with various people on like identity and blackness. And so I want people to see the people that hold me down. They're going to be able to work with folks. They are going to be part of decolonizing therapy. People can choose to work with them. They're going to continue to up their pages. They're going to post on the page. They're going to, we are also going to have a training series so that people across the world can do 3-level tiers. And there'll be education. And I can't get into that. It's pretty exciting. Yes. And it's not just going to be me. It's going to be people that follow, that have millions of followers. And I'm going to compensate them in order to have them do like a 45-minute training on like fat phobia, someone else on queer sexuality, someone else on ableism. And then the second part will be the emotional work for like 6 months to a year that people will have groups with me. And then the last part is people will be doing retreats with me.
Wow. And I love that you're creating space for other people in your field, sharing that success. Yeah. And I love that you spoke about, because I think that's how it would have happened in ancestral times, which is the apprentice becomes the colleague.
Yes.
That's a very natural progression.
Yeah.
So I love that.
I'm glad you're excited about that. Yay!
I'm so excited. That's awesome.
When people say, "Can you recommend a therapist in Alberta, Canada? Can you recommend a therapist in Toronto?" I might know 1 or 2 therapists, but that doesn't mean that I feel like they can hold a frame that is politicized and not blame people for their dis-ease. Does that make sense? So I need to know them better, and I need to make sure that they've worked on themselves, not just have continuing education credits, but that have you ever been in therapy? Have you ever been in some kind of healing? Have you ever you worked on your shit? I think it's a big criteria.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you got to get going. So I just want to thank you. Thank you. I'm so deeply appreciative of the time you've spent.
Thank you.
Just dropping gems. Just thank you so much. And if you'd like to let people know where they can find you, website, Instagram, etc., etc.
Yeah, thank you. They can find me at Decolonizing Therapy on Instagram. You can also find me on www.dr Jennifer JENNIFER Mullan MULLAN.com. So drjennifermullan.com. Coming soon is going to be a whole Decolonizing Therapy website separate. As we continue to grow that. You can also find me, we have Decolonizing Therapy on Facebook, but I'm not, it's not as up and running. And also on Twitter, I believe I'm Dr. Jenny Jen on Twitter. I think I gotta check my social media. I should know that. And you can also contact me in all of those ways. I also want to say thank you so much, Khadija. Thank you so very much. Thank you for your light. Thank you for your Brown Biz Instagram, the education and the wisdom that you're imparting on other individuals. Thank you for your hunger and your passion and your drive and your willingness to listen and learn and grow. So thank you for having me on here. And thank you for your patience in some of my rescheduling. Yeah, thank you.
Life happens. And also, I mean, just this was such an enriching conversation. And yeah, I could just keep on going and talking about how literally, I don't know if I could add up and count the ways that your work has affected me in just a ripple effect, from the things that you write to understanding my immigration as forced migration and not voluntary, to connecting with my ancestors and my grandparents and my living ancestors and my dead ancestors, and just it's a lot.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
I'm getting emotional.
Oh no, I understand, and I love the emotionality, and I think the emotion means that, like, you know, when someone taps into something that had been there,
yeah,
and kind of sees us, and it opens everything up, and it's like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's what I've been feeling. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
That's what I needed. You know, and I feel that all the time. Like, I feel like I'm always learning, and what a beautiful place to be in. And I learned from you today too in our conversation. So thank you so much. Thank you. This is intergenerational too, because I'm old. No. I love it.
I really hope you have an amazing rest of the evening. And thank you again. And I do hope we'll stay in touch. I mean, hearing that you work with people in Canada and you educate HR professionals, I don't know, I might hit you up one day.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
Okay. Bye.
And that concludes my interview with Dr. Jennifer Mullan of At Decolonizing Therapy. Didn't feel like an interview, felt like a warm, beautiful conversation with a person I really, really admire. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. If you did enjoy the podcast, please consider contributing to my Patreon. The link will be in the description below, as well as all the links to where you can find Dr. Jennifer Mullan's work. And next week, stay tuned for an episode with another special guest. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate your time.